is running. I am going to start off screen sharing, I think, and we will open the doors. If you want to pop spotlight on me.
Right. And it's time, so start webinar. Everyone will be joining.
Excellent.
Currently at 48 and rising.
Welcome, everyone. We're just going to take a moment to let everyone come in through the doors. We have many hundreds of people to let in, and we are delighted to see you all here. So we'll just take a moment and let everyone get their audio and visual equipment sorted out. Okay, let us begin. My name's Andy, and along with my colleagues Malachi, Naja, and Jocelyn, we are helping to run the event. So we're not directly involved in the content. We are simply helping to keep things approximately on time. I want to start off just by dealing with a couple of simple housekeeping issues. Obviously, by virtue of the fact that you've made it this far, you have also managed to log into the website. And I just wanted to mention a few things about how this is going to be working. First of all, in the plenary sessions and in some of our breakout sessions, we will be recording the sessions. And so that covers both anything that typically the presenters are saying, but also anything that you might type in by way of a question or something like that. So just be aware of that. Now, on the website, you'll see that we have a number of items on the left-hand side, and we refer to this as your quick links, and it's really just to give you the navigational structure to help you move through the event over the next few days. I am sure that many of you will have already come across the pre-event viewing. And for the Q&A sessions today, and also for the career awardee sessions, their presentations have already been recorded and have been available to you for a few days. I will come back to that in a moment. The important thing, though, is for today, this is our agenda, and we are up here. Now, my computer happens to be set to run in 24-hour clock. Yours will look differently, and it should also be adjusting for whatever time zone you're in. So if your computer doesn't look exactly like mine, do not worry. In a moment, I'm going to pass over to Rose Wesson to help get us started. But before I do that, I wanted to just call out a couple of things about the way the event runs. Most of these items on the agenda are just there for information, but some of them, for instance, this, as you roll over it, you'll find that you can click on it. And being able to click on these things is important because this is how you're going to get to a number of your sessions. You don't have to remember this. We will explain it as we go along, but just be aware. Some of these, for instance, any of these breakout sessions and this session are actually sub-menus which you use to navigate. Next thing about this is in the left-hand side, you'll see that we have a little item here, network session. Rose is going to talk a little bit more about this, but I'm delighted that clearly quite a few of you have found this already because it helps us highlight one of the important things about the website. Now, Rose will talk about this, but basically this is an opportunity to suggest informal conversations that you might like to have on Friday. But the way that it's being done is using these little sort of virtual sticky notes, which you can write on, which you can comment on, and on Friday, we'll also invite you to sign up to say which ones you want to deal with. We're going to be using these virtual sticky notes in a number of places because it's an opportunity for you to be able to raise questions or make observations. So it's the basic metaphor here is that this is a flip chart. Each of these are pages, and on the pages, you can add your sticky notes. So with that, I'm going to stop screen sharing and I'm going to pass over to Rose, who will start screen sharing and welcome us to the event officially.
Great, Andy, thank you. So I am going to share my screen as well. And of course, it's not where it should be, but I will share it and then correct it. And let me make it big. So first, again, welcome and good afternoon, depending on your time zone. Good afternoon and welcome to the 2021 NSF ENG Career Workshop. So again, my name is Rose Wesson, and I'm a former NSF program director and currently interim associate provost for research at the City College of New York. We hope you and your families are safe and healthy as we look forward to turning the corner of this global COVID-19 pandemic. Before we get started, I'd like to review the code of conduct for this 3 half-day workshop. So I am going to take a minute to read it so that everyone, you should have seen this before, it's posted on the website, but it says, in an effort to foster a harassment-free environment, 2021 NSF ENG Career Workshop attendees are required to review the following code of conduct. The purpose of the code of conduct is to restate important principles and expectations for professional conduct and acceptable behavior by all 2021 NSF ENG Career Workshop attendees. While non-exhaustive, this code is a shared statement of commitment to uphold the ethical, professional, and legal standards required to fulfill these principles and objectives. All participants will treat others with dignity and respect, will exercise the highest level of professional and ethical behavior, and will work cooperatively to resolve differences. Physical or verbal abuse of any person, including but not limited to harassment, stalking, bullying, or hazing of any kind, whether the behavior is carried out verbally, physically, electronically, or in a written form, will not be tolerated. Conduct that is offensive, indecent, obscene, or disorderly should be immediately reported. Violations of this code of conduct may be shared either orally or in writing with any of the conference organizers. So before I get into my welcome, I would like to turn the floor over to Dawn Tilbury. She is the current assistant director in the NSF's Directorate for Engineering. So Dawn received her BS degree in electrical engineering, summa cum laude, from the University of Minnesota, and her master's and PhD degrees in electrical engineering and computer science from UC Berkeley. In 1995, she joined the mechanical engineering department at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, where she is currently a professor with a joint appointment as a professor in EECS. Her research interests lie broadly in the area of control systems, including applications to robotics and manufacturing systems. She has published more than 150 articles in refereed journals and conference proceedings. She was elected Fellow of the IEEE in 2008 and Fellow of ASME in 2012, and is a life member of SWE, the Society of Women Engineers. Since June of 2017, Dawn has been the Assistant Director for Engineering at NSF. Dawn Tilbury leads NSF's Directorate of Engineering in its mission to support engineering research and education, critical to the nation's future, and fosters innovations to benefit society. The Engineering Directorate provides about 40% of the federal funding for fundamental research in engineering at academic institutions and distributes about 1,600 research awards each year. After Dawn gives her introduction, I will return and talk more about what's happening today at the workshop. I'll stop sharing, and Dawn, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Rose, for such a great introduction, and welcome everyone to this career workshop. As you've all been adapting to the coronavirus pandemic situation at your universities, NSF has also adapted. In fact, we've all been teleworking since last March, but continue to advance the mission of the agency. Our mission is to promote the progress of science, advance the national health, prosperity, and welfare, and secure the national defense. It's a great mission, and we enthusiastically support it. You can also help us advance our mission through your critical research. Now, being a junior faculty member in engineering is really exciting. There's so many opportunities for you, new research directions, new collaborations, new courses to teach, etc. I think the field is really exploding. It seems to me that things are moving so much faster than they were 25 years ago when I was an assistant professor, while many things are also easier. I remember going to the engineering library to get some papers to read, find the journal on the shelf, make photocopies of the article I wanted to read, then go to the reference shelf and do a forward citation search, write down the next set of papers to get, and head back to the shelves in the copy machine. Nowadays, it's just one click on Google Scholar to get all of that. There's so much more being published, and it's so much easier to find, but it all needs to be digested, understood, and built upon by the next set of experiments or methodologies that you're developing. In many ways, it's easier. In other ways, it's harder. Every generation needs to set its own path. It's an exciting and fast time in engineering and academia. So many opportunities and so many things to do. Teaching, advising, committees, writing proposals, etc. Over my years in the university, I've heard from so many junior faculty how much pressure they feel to get their career award. And I'd like to give a little perspective from my 25 years on the faculty at the University of Michigan. A career award is a great award to have. However, it's neither necessary nor sufficient for tenure. Similarly, a tenured faculty position is also a great thing to have. But at the end of the day, it's a job. It's just a job, a great job. Think of the work that you're doing as an assistant professor in a three-dimensional space: research, teaching, and service. At tenure time, your vector in that three-dimensional space will be evaluated, maybe also its derivative. Your university will also have a unit vector that's aligned with its values, and the tenure committee will take the inner product. So it's possible to be doing great work in one or more of the three dimensions, but be misaligned with your university's values. Two major pieces of advice. First, do good work in important areas. Try to get feedback to make sure that others agree that your work is important by sending your papers to journals, presenting at conferences, and sending out your proposals for review. Second, make sure that the direction of your work in this three-dimensional space aligns with the values of your university. You could also think of a higher dimensional space where research includes advising PhD students, publishing papers, bringing in funding, etc. Teaching could be classrooms, labs, undergraduate advising, mentoring, etc. So if you're doing good work in the right directions, you will be successful. However, if your values are misaligned with your university, you could think about finding another place. There's more than 300 universities in this country that offer engineering degrees, and they all have their own mission and values. At the end of the day, you'll be happiest and do your best work at a place that shares your values and helps you succeed. I'll tell you a story about my own time as an assistant professor. I got advice not to spend too much time on teaching. Research was most important at the University of Michigan. So when I was teaching during my first semester, I became a morning person. I woke up early to write lecture notes for my 9:30 a.m. class, and by 9:30, my lecture was ready to give. I didn't stay up half the night trying to perfect it. I learned that my students were struggling using MATLAB for control system design. This was 1995, and MATLAB was still a little bit new, And for those of you who've used it, the syntax can be difficult. There's colons and semicolons, square brackets, round brackets, curly brackets. So I created a website to give my students examples they could use. Copy the command off the website, paste it into MATLAB. It was easy enough to change some of the parameters. I showed this website to every single control seminar speaker that came through that semester. Now, one of them had had the same experience with challenging students with MATLAB and saw that this website could really make a big difference. He and I sat down that summer and wrote an NSF proposal to get funding to expand it. We wrote several papers about it and won a bunch of awards. So I spent more time on teaching than I had been advised to do, but I got papers, funding, and awards out of that activity. I did get the feedback that this was a good thing to be doing, but it could not be the only thing. Research needed to be the cake and teaching could be the icing. So I hope you'll take advantage of all the material that's presented during this workshop, but especially the connections and networking that you'll experience. I realize that the virtual connection may not be as good as in-person connections, but it is way better than no connections. The NSF program directors are very willing to help. They're also working through the best ways to connect virtually. We've learned a lot in the last year, but we still have some more tricks to learn. I also encourage you to connect with participants from other institutions who are going through similar challenges. Make a new friend or a few friends, bounce research ideas off of each other, and make a schedule to read drafts of each other's proposals. Help each other out so you can all be successful. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this workshop.
So thank you, Dr. Tilbury, for your inspiring words and also for taking time to welcome the junior faculty to the workshop. I am going to share my screen again and continue with the welcome. So before proceeding to the next session, I'd also like to recognize and thank the other members of the committee who have worked tirelessly to make the workshop a success. We have 3 additional former NSF program directors on the team. Iyad Abed, a former NSF program director in ECCS, is currently a professor of electrical and computer engineering at University of Maryland, College Park. Alex Leonessa, a former NSF CBET program director, and currently an expert in CMMI, is a professor of mechanical engineering at Virginia Tech. Kara Peters, a former NSF CMMI program director, is currently a professor of mechanical and aerospace engineering at North Carolina State University. The additional committee members are myself and also Linda Vigdor, Associate Director of Proposal Development at the Advanced Science and Research Center, also known as ASRC, at the City University of New York, also known as CUNY. Linda runs annual CUNY-wide career proposal writing boot camps. I'd also like to recognize the other members of the CCNY team who have kept the train running and you've probably interacted with, Yvette Duran and William Gow. Let me also thank Dr. Tilbury and Dr. Carol Reed for sponsoring this workshop. Thanks also to the division directors and Dr. Reed, who took the time to pre-record their presentations. I hope you've had a chance to review these presentations on the KI Storm website. We also requested that our 4 NSF career awardees pre-record their sessions. They are also volunteering their time to work at this workshop. You'll have the opportunity to meet these awardees later on today. Following this additional welcome, we will begin the Q&A session for the NSF division directors and Dr. Carol Reed. This session will be followed by another Q&A with the 4 recent career awardees. We have a list of questions that were generated as a result of participants previewing the presentations. After the break, we will reconvene to our career topic sessions. All attendees will have the opportunity to attend all 4 sessions. Attendees will attend 2 sessions today and 2 sessions again on Friday. Attendees have been pre-divided into sessions, so you will automatically be placed in the appropriate sessions. Believe me, the magic will happen. At the end of the day, we will reconvene to discuss the next 2 days of the conference. We have a full afternoon planned, and afternoon, morning, depending on your time zone. We recognize that in most cases, we're working from home, and attention during part of the day may be diverted to other activities. Feel free to manage your time as needed. Now, let me turn the floor back over to Andy Burnett, who will assist with the management of the NSF Directorate and Career Program Q&A. So I will stop sharing, Andy.
Great, thank you very much, Rose. Okay, just very briefly, I wanted to deal with the technology for the next step. And Rose, it may just be mine has taken a there we go. I was thinking just yesterday, actually, that it is only just over a year since the last time we ran this event virtually. And at that point, of course, there were many people who had yet to experience the delights of Zoom, etc. And so we had to do quite a lot of tech hand-holding. It amuses me to notice that in our network session, someone has already created a Slack space, and presumably people, our participants are now signing up. So we are all in a far more capable state than we were before in terms of the use of technology. Nevertheless, I just wanted to mention that for anyone who has not been in a Zoom webinar before, the way this is going to work is down at the bottom of your screen, you will see a box marked Q&A. This is separate from the chat box. You're welcome to use the chat box if something is not working for you or you need help. The Q&A box we encourage you to use for its fairly obvious purpose. So in a moment, Carol and the other program division directors are going to come on, and we will have the opportunity to ask questions via the Q&A box. Obviously, with so many people attending, only a subset of the questions will be dealt with, but any question that you add to the Q&A will at least be logged. So it's not a case that you're shouting into a void. It's just we can't necessarily answer everyone live. So with that, Carol, let me pass over to you and let's start getting some Q&A going.
Thank you, Andy. And I want to welcome my colleagues, the division directors of engineering. I'll just briefly introduce them. We have Dr. Richard Dickinson, who is the division director of the Chemical, Bioengineering, Environmental, and Transport Systems, CBETS. And then we have Dr. Robert Stone, who is the division director of the Civil, Mechanical, and Manufacturing Innovation, or CMMI. We have Dr. Don Millard, who is the acting division director of the Engineering Education and Centers Division. And then we have Dr. Shekhar Bhansali, who is the division director of the Electrical, Communications, and Cyber Systems, or ECCS. So you can see that we are definitely an acronym soup, but we kind of need it because we have long titles for our divisions. So thanks everyone for watching the videos, or hopefully you have had a chance to see our introductory videos. And we're really here to serve you and all the questions that you have. So we have a first question of just clarifying that the career program is for non-R1 institutions, and that is actually incorrect. The career program is for all institutions across institutions of higher education who are eligible for NSF funding. And so if you have a position that has a research and educational component, you are potentially eligible for the career program as long as you meet the eligibility criteria. So that is not correct. Career is open to R1 institutions as well as other types of institutions. We're getting a lot of specific ones, so I might just cover them. So we have, would non-tenure track research assistant professor be eligible for submitting an NSF career proposal? You could be potentially eligible. And again, I want to refer everyone to the solicitation NSF 525. And we also have a fax document, NSF 20-025. And they contain really the legal details of eligibility. But briefly, if you are a research assistant professor, meaning non-tenure track, you could be potentially eligible for the career program. And the actual eligibility criteria are in the solicitation, but you must have responsibilities for both research and education, and eligibility is established through the departmental letter that is a part of the presentation, a part of the proposal. So strictly speaking, NSF does not make calls about eligibility. It is really made by your institution through this departmental letter from the chair of your department, which is a required piece of the proposal. Sorry, everyone. All these are really very, very specific for the program. So can we request a postdoc? And yes, you can include funding for a postdoc in your career proposal. I think hopefully one theme you'll get out of this workshop today is the importance of talking to program officers, because every program, how it is run with a career program is slightly different to kind of support the culture in that particular discipline area. And so yes, a postdoc can be included in your budget, but it's always a good idea to talk to your program director about typical size projects and how you structure the funding. But yes, you can include a postdoc. Is it advisable to contact program directors while developing the proposal? Yes, but let me just caution this, that a program director won't help you write your proposal, obviously, but we can give you valuable feedback on what we call program fit to see if your set of research questions fit the program that that program director is managing. And also to let you know, another important thing to consider is the review environment. That's the audience of the reviewers that are going to be evaluating your proposal. So yes, it is very important to really contact a program director after you've done the homework to figure out which program you should submit to. Does any of my colleagues want to kind of comment on how you reach program directors in, or any type of thing along this theme? Don?
Sure, I'll just say for any proposals in the engineering education research related area or broadening participation in engineering research related areas, feel free to be able to reach out to the two program officers that coordinate those programs that are listed on our EEC website. And the way they typically have interacted with career proposal PIs is to be able to ask them to submit a no more than one-page overview of the idea that you're planning on pursuing, and be able to provide a sense of what it is you're looking for in terms of advice or guidance that they might be able to provide you with. If they could handle it through email, that's always best. But if there's need for a quick follow-up chat, they are happy to be able to do so. But please respect their time. And one other aspect, at least within EEC, we do not like when folks send a similar message to multiple PDs so that they have to then correspond or coordinate their response or find out that they're duplicating the responses. So please be careful about who you're sending it to.
Okay, Rich?
I would tackle it a little bit, but I think the first step for everyone should be to go to the NSF webpage and take a look at the program descriptions, because that'll give you the first, clear guidance in terms of what fits and what doesn't. And some of those program descriptions will give pointers to other programs that may be similar or have some overlap, and that they've decided to defer to another program for those topics. And then a CVET, what I normally recommend is that you go ahead and draft that one-page project summary for your NSF proposal and use that as a starting point for the conversation with the program director by emailing that to the program director and then requesting some time to discuss it to see if it's a fit. Of course, there's sometimes projects will be sort of on boundaries between different programs within a division, or even across divisions or across directorates. So you can feel free to reach out to me if you feel like you don't see a good fit to any of the programs, and I can help guide you to a right program. And I think that's true for the other division directors as well.
Okay, anyone else? So we did have a question for Dr. Tilbury. Can you address the future directions the engineering directorate may be pursuing as a result of the new administration?
So I think you could read the newspapers and see that the new administration is very interested in climate change and clean energy, racial equity, economic prosperity. So I think engineering has a lot of things to apply to these challenges. Also, public health, pandemics, and cleaning surfaces. So I think there's so many things that the engineers are already doing that are addressing the national challenges as outlined by the administration. These are also high priorities in Congress. So developing new technologies that can help make society safer, more efficient, healthier. All these are great topics for engineering. I don't know, do my DDs want to chime in on any specific topics they think are coming up?
I'll just emphasize in the racial equity area, we're really looking for proposals in broadening participation, how we're able to really engage other groups into engineering and make it an inclusive culture. And so we're really looking at research that helps us accomplish the objective of changing the demographics of engineering.
So we have a couple of questions coming in on the mechanics. In the solicitation, you'll see that the budget minimum is $500,000 for the 5-year project. That's a minimum. And again, there is, I think it's important to talk to the program director of the program that you're going to submit to get an idea of typical budgets for career proposals that are funded in that program. But in general, as I stated in my recorded talk, for engineering, again, the budget is $500,000 all in over the 5 years. That's the minimum. And we encourage you to provide sufficient resources for one graduate student and summer salary for yourself, and to really cover the cost of your program. Now, if selected for award, all projects are subject to budget negotiation, but just definitely refer to that one slide that I did have in the recording presentation on guidance for budgets. But this is another critical question to talk about with the program director of the program that you're going to submit to. So I think Rich had kind of touched upon this frequent question we get from people on my proposal can be in 2 programs. So for a career program, it can only be submitted to one for each cycle. And so that's one theme I think we're trying to get at with this workshop, the importance of doing your homework, reading all the program descriptions that really align with what you're going to do. I want to emphasize again that the career project is not your whole research program. It is a specific 5-year project. And so it's not going to cover everything that you're doing in your lab. But do your homework, after you've read the program descriptions and kind of narrowed it down, we recommend that you sequentially contact the program directors with this one pager. I think a number of us have mentioned that that's a common tool that we encourage people to put together as this one pager. It's kind of very similar, maybe the same as the project summary that you have to do as part of your proposal anyway, to give an idea of the intellectual merit and the broader impacts and the background of your idea. And use that as a tool to contact by email the program officer and say, hey, I think my proposal might fit your program, but I also think the other one as well. And to start those conversations to really figure out what are your key innovations? Do they lie in one program A versus B to help you guide on where to submit? But it's important to note that program directors typically won't say, yes, you should submit to my program or something like that, because in the end, where you submit is your decision. So we're here to really explain the types of topics that are in our program, the review environment, and of course, through the website, you can see what has been funded previously on the program description page as well. So, I'm lost here. There's some questions about how career proposals are reviewed. And I think I also touched more detail on this in the recording. But in engineering, it's important to emphasize that we have dedicated career proposal panels in engineering. Now, that's not the case across the foundation. How career proposals are reviewed varies across the foundation, but in engineering, it's a dedicated career panel. So what does that mean? That means depending upon how many proposals a program director receives in their panel, they might have one or multiple career panels, but there are not going to be other types of proposals. So for example, there won't be unsolicited proposals. They'll all be career proposals. And so that's your review environment. The reviewers are typically senior faculty that will cover, their combined expertise will cover the topics on that panel. And in engineering, we typically have 4 reviews for the proposals, and every proposal is discussed by the panel. And depending upon the program director, they might augment that also with ad hoc or written reviews. So that's kind of the typical audience that you're talking to in terms of your proposal. So we have some general questions on one typical feature, well, I think a distinguishing feature of your career proposal, this integration of education and research. Again, I think the career proposal is almost a career development proposal. It's to give you 5 years of funding to set that firm foundation for you as a researcher and educator. And so I'll bring in our distinguished panelists to talk about the types of, there's questions on the proportion between education and research, or the types of things to show the tie between education and research. But can you maybe want to comment on these 2 considerations of the career proposal of this integration of education and research?
Sure. Hey, Hal. Thanks, Carol. I'll take a little first stab at it before my fellow colleagues jump in. But it is it's an integration of research and education, and so by some standards they should be given sort of equal weight in that proposal, because not only is the technical sort of the research piece there, but also how does that impact the educational part of your life and your job. And so I would say give them sort of equal proportions in many ways.
Yeah, I would just say, you don't want to leave either part short, but the key part is that it's integrated. It's not integrated in the sense that it's in the same proposal, but there actually has to be a real connection, and that in the career, there's a section that actually asks for how it's integrated, if I recall. That's right, Carol. So yeah, you put some thought into that, and I think the idea is that you want your educational component to leverage your research component and vice versa. So they're really supporting each other to help launch your career as a scholar and educator and a researcher. So I think yeah, put a lot of thought into how the two are working off each other.
So I'll certainly agree wholeheartedly with both Rob and Rich's comments there, and just augmented for EEC related proposals. Since we're looking at engineering education research and broadening participation research, I think it's important for you to also look at how this is going to impact the professional formation of engineers. And in fact, I just encourage you to look at our website to be able to read the materials that we have on describing what we mean by professional formation of engineers as well.
So I want to emphasize again that think of the integration of education and research as almost a third criteria in addition to the broader impacts and intellectual merit for a career proposal. And definitely read the solicitation. I'll keep harping on this, NSF 525, because it really has a really good discussion on the integration of education and research. I think the goal is for your research to enrich your education, and your education to enrich your research program, to have that synergy between the two of them. So, and just to say that NSF doesn't have any specific requirements or how you do it. We really leave it up to you and really encourage you to be creative and think of something that you're passionate about. This is a 5-year project. So in the end, all these activities you're proposing, hopefully you have a passion about that, because you're going to have to do it. And so definitely really stick to what your passions in both your research and this education piece. There are some questions about success rates, but I don't think we really talk about funding rates at NSF. I think the main thing under your control is to write as compelling a proposal as possible for you. There's a question of faculty who submit for primarily undergraduate institutions competitive in the review process. First of all, these types of institutions are eligible for the career program. And so I think you should definitely, well, for everyone to, again, talk to your program officer on the types of projects that are coming into their programs for career, on strategies. And do any of my colleagues want to also kind of give any comments on primarily undergraduate institutions and their involvement in career and engineering?
I would just say, play to your strengths. All right, you've got an opportunity to really focus on, to have an undergraduate education focus as part of that career, and to sort of bring in undergraduates into the research enterprise. And so I think, play to your strengths. Don't sort of shy away from it.
Yeah, I'd add that we really look at what's the best idea, not necessarily the institution that the idea is coming from. So whether you're an R1, R2, PUI, what have you, we're looking for what are the best ideas, and the panelists aren't necessarily reviewing the institutions, they're reviewing the PI's capability to be able to deliver on the idea.
Okay, thank you. And so I'm just trying to cover as many of the questions as possible. And so we have—
Carol, can I put in a plug for
yes, please.
At primarily undergraduate institutions? We recently issued a brand new solicitation for research initiation in engineering, or engineering in something along those lines. And it's for non-R1 schools, faculty who have never received a federal grant. So this is a starter grant. It's not career. It's, in a similar idea, but it's just a research grant to get started for people who are at non-R1 institutions. So I'd encourage you to look at that as a complement to career. So something to think about as a different avenue for research support.
Yes, so if you Google ERI, Engineering Research Initiation, I don't remember the solicitation name because I have the career one in my brain ingrained, but Google ERI NSF, you'll get the solicitation. And I believe it is due for this cycle. I think it's June 21st at 5 o'clock local time, but definitely, oh, good. I think Don has put that in the chat. There's some question about if people are hearing the panelists. I don't know if Andy and your team are seeing those.
Your sound, Carol, your sound is coming through fine to us and on our test systems. So,
okay.
Rainier, if you want to rejoin on your phone or another device, that might help. Please carry on, Carol.
Okay, so there's a question for the panelists on your perspective of key metrics that are characteristic of a 5-year or forward-looking plan, I guess referring to the career project since it's 5 years. Does anybody want to offer any perspectives on that?
You mean?
Well, it says the key metrics that are characteristic of a 5-year or forward-looking plan. Well, I guess I'll just start it off. Again, the career project is 5 years. And so you're trying to really put in activities that can be conducted within this 5-year plan. There's certainly a research components as well. But what you're trying to do is make the case of what I want to be known for, both intellectually and also as an education leader. And so think of these as types of activities of forming a firm foundation for your career as a researcher and an educator. And a colleague once told me a good kind of thing to think about is think of your career proposal as kind of this tree trunk that's forming this firm foundation, and the reviewers then can see the future branches or future proposals coming out because of this investment in your career project. But in the end, it is doable within the 5-year plan. So it does have these two emphasis of kind of this broad look of what kind of career you're establishing, but also clear work that can be done in a 5-year period. So it is a challenge to balance both of those viewpoints or perspectives.
I would say the review panel will commonly take that view too. Rather than a normal project that would be reviewed at NSF where they're focused on the science, they'll be looking at the science and the education plan and how they're integrated, but also how this will form a foundation for the career. So that'll be something that the panel and commonly the panel are more experienced faculty that tend to be highly visible people in the field. And so they're really trying to see how this project or integrated project will lead to your future success in the long term.
Okay, so we have a question of would a PI from a non-engineering department be at a disadvantage when submitting a career proposal to an engineering program? So again, the topics that we have across engineering are very varied, but that we do not basically, there's nothing that says that someone from a non-engineering department can't apply. You certainly can apply. It's really the alignment of your research objectives to the scope of the discipline program that you're reviewing for. So for example, just from my own experience, when in my career panels, I typically have a wide range of disciplines. I have people from chemistry, material science, mechanical engineering, chemical engineering. You know, it's a varied of disciplines to cover all the topics in my program. And so that's another of the theme of talking to your program officer to get an idea of the types of topics that you can see in the program description, but also to understand that review environment. And so, yes, if you're a non-engineering faculty, as long as your project, the research objectives align to your program that you're applying to in engineering, that's what the reviewers are looking at. They're looking at the alignment of the research objectives and the education component and their value of the intellectual merit and broader impacts of how it advances that discipline program. Does any of the panel want to comment on that?
I'll just say, just because you're in an engineering department doesn't mean you should submit your career proposal to the engineering directorate. Again, like Carol said, you need to find the right fit. If you're in a material science and engineering department, your proposal may better fit in DMR, which is in the MPS directorate. If you're in electrical and computer engineering or computer engineering department, your proposal may fit better in size or the computer and information science and engineering directorate. So again, you need to try to find the right fit for your program. NSF is not, it's kind of organized like a university, but every university is organized differently. So don't just say because the name of your department is in the division, that's where my proposal needs to go. Go down to the level of the research directions and try to find the right fit for your program. And like was suggested earlier, reach out to the program director, send them a one-pager. And if they come back and be like, this isn't really what we do in this program, why don't you try this other one? Try again, which means you should probably start early because all the NSF people are really busy. We're all working at home. And so give people time and, you may not get an immediate response. So, but be able to have that time to really find the right fit. But reading what's on the website will give you a really good start.
Any other comments on that? Okay.
Just a reminder that, engineering may have a little bit different nuances in how they handle their career program than other directorates. So you would want to check with those program directors to see what those differences might be.
Yeah, thanks, Rich, because there's basically two themes we want to get across from everyone. The importance of program fit, which takes homework, talking to program, well, first kind of looking at the program descriptions, what has been awarded, how it resonates with your research objectives, and then talking to program directors, but also understanding the review environment. And as I said, how the career proposal is reviewed varies across the foundation, depending upon the culture of that division or directorate. And so that's your audience. And so you want to understand the review environment as well, because you're not writing to the program director or yourself, you're writing to the reviewers so that they can best assess how your project aligns with the criteria. We have a question of, can proposed research, I lost it. I think it's basically, can applied research can be submitted? Sorry, working with more than one computer here. Okay, does our proposed research need to be fundamental science, or can it be more applied engineering oriented? This is in general, NSF in the core programs are funding fundamental engineering, well, for engineering directorate, fundamental engineering science. And so I think that's an important discussion to have with your program director. In the career projects, reviewers are in general looking for on the intellectual merit side of what fundamental knowledge is coming out of that project and why is it important. And so I would say more translational research efforts are probably not a good fit for the career program, but there is this gray zone between fundamental engineering science and when you're getting more applied. And so to understand it, I think that's also another topic to take up with the program director of the program that you're going to submit to. Any comments on that theme from the panel?
I'll only add something that you haven't said that would normally be a good advice to go when you do go look at the program descriptions. If you want to see the types of things that have been funded from that program, you can go down to the bottom of the program description. There'll be a link for what's been awarded recently, and you can kind of see what the distribution is, and whether it's just really fundamental or it's getting more towards the applied end, or even the topic areas. So you can look at not only all the awards that have been funded by that program, but all the career awards that have been funded recently, and kind of see if your idea fits sort of within that range.
So there's a question, can I apply for the career and the ERI, which is the Engineering Research Initiation, within the same year, and can it be the same project? So these solicitations have different objectives and different size projects. So I think inherently, no, they will not be the same project. A career project is a 5-year scope. And I believe the ERI, I think it was a 2-year scope. And so, and also, NSF will only fund, an area of research once, the topics once. So I think you need to distinguish between what is the project that you submit to ERI, which is inherently much shorter. It's a 2-year effort. And again, look at the solicitation for the objectives on the type of work they're trying to fund. And for the career one, again, that's a 5-year grant, 5-year effort. So it's going to be much more expansive than an ERI project.
Carol, at this point, I think we may need to draw it to a close. Thank you very much to all of our panelists. Let me just change the screen at this point and just
can I just do one more message?
You totally can.
I'm really repeating myself. I'm a broken record, but it's really important for you to read the solicitation, NSF 525. And a lot of your common questions a lot of your questions are also covered in our facts document, which is pretty extensive. And if you do FAQs and career, you'll find it. Or I think the NSF number of the document is NSF-025. But a lot of the questions on eligibility and a lot of the rules for career and are covered in that facts document. So, and I also want to let you know that the foundation will have a webinar on the career program on May 14th and 20th. It's the same program. It's a 2-hour, there'll be about a 25-minute presentation and then a good 1.5 hours for questions. And so look at the career page and you can sign up for it, because we have 2 times to do it. It will be the same program, and with lots of seats available. And that's another opportunity to get some questions in about career as well. And that's coming up. And I think the registration is open for that.
Lovely. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Now, one point that I'd like to emphasize at this point is this whole event is meant to be an enjoyable experience rather than something that you endure. So although we will be moving through the agenda, we encourage you to stand up, take whatever breaks you need in order to make sure that you are comfortable. It is relatively compressed. We're trying to get a lot in here, but still you are absolutely welcome to step out, take breaks, do whatever you need to look after yourself. Now, our next section, in fact, let me share my screen just to make sure I've got this up for you, is our career awardee presentations and Q&A section. Now, obviously, their presentations were pre-recorded and you've already had the opportunity to watch them. So the invitation at this point is to go and choose which of the presentations and Q&A sessions you would like to start with first. Do not click anything yet. I'm going to just show you. You'll see in the agenda, our session is now highlighted with these blue bars. And let me just explain, there are two things we need to be clear about. First of all, it's a completely free choice. You can choose any of the 4 presenters to go to first. And secondly, there is time to do 2. So we will go into our first presentation, and after an hour, we will switch and you get to choose the next one. And to get to that presentation, it's simply a case of, in fact, let me just do this. You click on the highlighted section and you then click on whichever one you are joining next, and you will see a join Zoom button at the top. Now we're going to end this meeting, but if there just happens to be an overlap, when you click that join Zoom button, you might find for a moment a box pops up saying, are you sure you want to leave your current meeting? The answer is yes. So make your choice and we will see you over there in a moment. Thank you very much.